Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Mayan Speedplay number 29. We left off still at war with the British Empire, although we can hopefully just dismantle them by the time this episode is through. We go ahead and divvy up our force over here in Australia in order that we may hopefully land basically everywhere that we need to land at once. We've also already landed something like, 96,000 men up here in Britain. So the war is definitely going quite well. We considered dropping these men in Africa, however the British had ships, so we pull back and kind of just hide from that, since that would be kind of awful if we lost all those transports and men. Meanwhile, we are just moving our troops about in Southeast Asia. Hopefully we won't have to do that very much anymore. Our vassal Tunis is having some trouble. We did get attacked by their navy, but we just brought our battle fleet over and they walked away. And we just stack wiped that army that for some reason suicided itself into us. We're just generally taking care of things. We turned off all of our forts just because we have just a ridiculous amount of forts and it's costing us too much money, despite the fact that they don't really come up and are almost detrimental when they do. We also do go ahead and mess with trade a little bit, just try to move our merchant. We do manage to just sort of figure it out a little. Tunis is kind of collapsing, but that doesn't really matter all that much. They are very rebellious, so if they do collapse, then it's kind of good for us. They won't be able to fight us. Alright, so that all said and done, we've nearly finished our conquest of British Australia and all of these areas, and we'll just carry these troops over to Africa more likely than not, and then from Africa over to the British home islands, depending on whether or not the war is actually still going on at that point. We are still hemorrhaging money. We do go ahead and finish up one of our admin idea groups. We also go ahead and just look around for places to colonize. And we go ahead and pick up all of our troops. We're going to try to just unite them at sea and then sail them over just generally around into Africa to defeat the British Empire. Now we also start destroying a lot of these forts. We're hemorrhaging money and we don't really need such an excessive or exorbitant amount of fortresses, especially when we basically dominate our home continents and everywhere else our navy basically stands atop everything. So yeah, it's a bit of a waste of money to just have all of that laying around. We also go ahead and see what it would take for us to get all of the British colonial possessions, and it would be basically 99% war score, which is kind of fantastic. It's almost as if it were meant to be. We also bait out the British Navy, however, they just kind of escape and sail right back. So, basically a non-move just then. That being said, I do notice that we aren't actually getting a vassal out of Terra Australia. It turns out we don't get colonial nations, which is quite a bit odd. I thought that as long as we didn't have a direct land connection to our capital, it would turn into a colonial nation. That appears to have been wrong. We cross over into Scotland. They have a massive army, and it turns out I really just underestimated that. So yeah, we just got stack wiped. 32,000 men dead in a moment because of a really dumb mistake. We send this larger army over, and they seem to be content with that. Our forces whom we were sending to Africa are going to be redirected and instead sent up here to replace the stack that we had lost. And since we do have a loan, and we are already considerably powerful, first of all, we have to pay some money to Tunis because they're about to go bankrupt. But as I was saying, just all things considered, we're going to just send the African force up here and just use them to reinforce. We do have a loan, and we're already probably going to win the war, so we aren't going to build a replacement army and get ourselves even further into debt. Although really at this point it doesn't matter if we have one or two loans floating around, since there are only less than 50 years left until the end of this campaign. Meanwhile, the British are charging up at us. We just go ahead and reinforce with our other armies and then just send them right on back to different points. We did win that battle, which is a considerable note. However, it wasn't too surprising now that we actually have the majority or almost the entirety of our land army on their home islands at this point. And we're really just going to be drifting around a bit, keeping our armies more or less in position. It looks like they're coming back up to Ashire. And we're just going to do the same thing, bring our armies over to reinforce, just smash them, and then just go back. Hopefully we can keep this repeated quite a bit and eventually just end the British land army entirely. Now, although the fact that they are basically defeated is pretty great, we are getting call for peace, and it looks like they're actually going to beat us this time, but we can time it so all of our troops get there at the same point, which we do, and we actually stack wipe them that time. So yeah, we've got a lot of benefits going towards us. However, they still will not accept our 99% war score peace deal, despite the fact that they've essentially lost and we're getting call for peace. So we will just keep doing what we've been doing. Hopefully we'll finish one of these sieges fairly quickly. We just took over all of Wales in about a month, thanks to no forts. And it looks like they are going to retake Ayrshire, which is a little annoying, but we'll just go right on back. And they do have a weirdly large amount of forces, which means they are hiring a lot of mercenaries. It looks like Norway and Finland have gotten free. So we could go up into the Scandinavian territories, although there's really no strategic interest in doing so, and no real strategic reason, honestly, just in general. It looks like they will accept our peace deal, so we go ahead and just take everything that we can get from the British Empire. And now it's not really an empire anymore, is it? We go ahead and just load all of our troops back into boats, because we have at this point 32-ish more transports than we actually have soldiers, which is a little, well, just ridiculously redundant, probably a bit expensive. It looks like Tunis is no longer our religion, since all their rebels basically just broke them. However, they'll be a more stable state this way, so, you know, I guess you win some, you lose some. We could maybe go ahead and reinforce religious unity on Tunis, make them our religion again, and have them just go through horrible civil wars. And I might do that if it seems like they're going to declare independence. Although since they're already at 100% overextension, I really don't know what the sign would be. Meanwhile, though, Kong broke their alliance. However, they are allied to this one province minor. So we declare war on the one province minor in order to call in Kong, who would otherwise have a truce with us, who just broke their alliance and thus made sub-Saharan Africa no longer really safe for us. So we do just kind of rove in. We keep all of our armies together because we learned in that war against Brazil that the most important thing is to have your troops within a set amount of distance that you can actually actively reinforce them. We continue to colonize, and you may have noticed that we stack wiped the Kongish army right then. I fully imagine they'll be able to rebuild a new one in the time it takes for us to occupy their countryside, although it does allow us to be a little more bold with our troop movements for a moment. And so, boldness ahead. We do just kind of go forward for it. Now, all we really need in this war is to get Kong's coastline. Since they are not co-belligerent, I'm not entirely sure we'll be able to do it. We attack an army of equal size and manage to win it, although not as decisively as I would have liked. They are at our tech level, which is a very key note, so we don't really have the advantages we would have had over let's see, what's a good word for that? Yeah, basically, though, their army is not god-awful. So, you know, more power to them, which is unfortunate because it makes it so that we actually have to try a little bit in this war. Not so very much, though. We do outnumber their army basically 3-1, and we are splitting up our force in the far east anyway. Kind of disrespecting their ability to fight back against us. Hopefully that doesn't actually prove to be a problem. We also declare war on Oyo because they do have a province that we need, and we can get all of the coast. And in fact, even more than just the coast. So we'll probably see what all we can get, and then hopefully go and grab it all. Now, just how far we go with this remains to be seen, but hopefully at least a decent distance. We also get a rebellion up here, and I do have some considerable forces, so we're maybe going to get our forces over to reinforce and just aid in the process. We do annex Oyo, and we bring our reinforcements up. It looks like the battle is already won, but we send them up anyway, and they do help somewhat. Alright, with that all said and done, we just continue to occupy their countryside. We can't actually ask for any provinces we don't directly control, which is, one, not different than before, and two, kind of interesting. I also realized that, well, it's interesting in the sense that it prolongs the war. I also realized that we could probably carve a path to Tunis and then just connect our West African holdings to our North African holdings through some sort of land bridge, and also in the process make all of the uncontrolled territories into the color of either ourselves or our vassals, which is a bit of an appealing prospect, even if it doesn't have a very great reason to be. So we do go ahead and just send our forces up. Unfortunately, a fort in Timbuktu will halt our progress, and while we can demand the areas from Kong directly, it would cost more and just kind of be a bit tedious. So we're going to have to go through the war leader, which means we're going to have to directly control the provinces, which means we're going to just siege out the entirety of our erstwhile ally Kong. which, tough Kong, you should have stayed allied to us. We could have made this whole thing work. Also, I didn't realize they were going to attack that stack. I thought they were going to attack our split up individual stacks. So we're going to have a very brutal battle where a lot of our troops are going to die for no great reason, but we did win the battle in the end, which is probably the closest thing to a Pyrrhic victory we're going to get in this war. We've also finished the siege of that fortress, so we can just rush our troops up everywhere. Unfortunately, it looks like we just sent a 4-stack up into that, and it died, and its reinforcements arrived a day too late. We go ahead and build a new stack to just replace it, and in just a moment we'll be able to make peace with the forces of Kong. We get a rebellion in Australia, which is kind of a problem, and we go ahead and see what all we can get. We can almost touch Yao, but not exactly. So we go ahead and just take all of those things, and we're just going to start transferring them over to Tunis. And hopefully, there we go, we had just enough. Tunis now has that wasteland. They also have the other wasteland as well. And since we don't really need to be in the interior to help our trade company, we may as well just snake Tunis all the way down and across. Interestingly enough, Morocco historically did something vaguely similar to this, in the sense that they just kind of vaguely snaked across the Sahara into sub-Saharan Africa and just stole all their money. So it's not exactly the same thing, not exactly a direct parallel, but we have made Tunis a significant power. Hopefully they don't rebel against us. We can probably go up north into North Africa and help them in the next episode, just clean up all the areas and maybe help Grenada establish itself. However, all of these trade map modes which we're currently looking at are a bit tempting. We could just keep going across Africa, set up a direct trade route line that would bring all of our, really just trade, all the trade in Asia over to, say, the Caribbean, and maybe make us a decent amount of money. My only real concern with that is that if we do that, then we'll have to worry about the Iberians siphoning off the money. So going up and just hitting Aragon in a method to help Tunis would probably be a good thing to do, and potentially pretty helpful in the short-ish term, since I can't imagine the Ottomans or the French have forgotten what we've done. So going up north and strengthening Tunis might be a very, very worthwhile thing to do. They won't be loyal to us, but that doesn't really matter since the fighting will be on their soil. So, it could work out quite well. At any rate, though, we're going to leave that for next time. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.